Welcome to Bible study this morning. We're finishing off our series on families. We've learned a lot about the family dynamic, and today we're going to learn that families can worship and tell others about Jesus together. So remember, worship is something we can do all the time, and telling others about Jesus is obviously something that's very important. Last week we talked about what it means to have a relationship with God and start that relationship. And this week we want you to know that as a family, you can do lots of things to worship together and tell others about Jesus. Now, to tell others about Jesus, first of all, we have to know about Jesus. So I'm going to give y'all a 60-second timer. And in that 60 seconds, you can go get a pen and paper if you want and write them down, or you can just try and think of as many things as you can about the life of Jesus. That if I said, okay, I want you to give me as many facts as you can about Jesus, write them down, think of them. You have 60 seconds, facts about Jesus. Ready, go.
Ready, set, go. Nine, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop.
All right. So you probably got down that he died on a cross. He was God's son. But you also have things like who he healed, that he had some disciples. Do you have that he cast some demons out, healed some lepers? There's lots of stories about the life of Jesus. And if we're going to talk to people about God and about Jesus, it's important to know a little bit about them, obviously. And the way we find out things about him are we read our Bible. So if you want to know some more things about Jesus, go ahead and start reading some of the Gospels, either Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. They're all about his life and they're all about facts. And we want to make sure that when we're telling people about God and we're telling people about Jesus, we're telling them the right facts and we have everything correct and not just guessing or making up stories. And so the story we're going to look at today from God's Word is from the book of Acts, which is after Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And you know that's about after Jesus was resurrected from the dead, and then he is no longer here on earth, and the disciples were spreading the word about him. So this story comes from Acts chapter 18, and I'm going to go ahead and share it with you. Acts chapter 18, basically 1 through 3, and then 18 through 28. So Paul traveled to many places to share the good news about Jesus. And when he traveled to Corinth, he met a man named Aquila, okay? And his wife's name was Priscilla. So I always think Aquila Priscilla, which I guess you could pronounce it either way. But they recently left Rome and they now lived in Corinth, where they worked as tent makers. Well, do you know who else was a tent maker? If you said Paul, that's right. So that was their job. They all were tent makers. Now, they worked alongside each other, making tents, and every Sabbath, Paul would go to the synagogue and he would teach people the good news about Jesus. So, a little bit later, Paul set sail for Syria in order to share the gospel. Now, Priscilla and Aquila went with him, but on the way, the ship stopped at Ephesus. Now, Priscilla and Aquila stayed in Ephesus, but Paul kept going and traveled on. Now, a Christian man named Apollos also came to Ephesus. Now, he knew the scriptures pretty good, which was the law back then. That was what they studied, and that's what they knew. They didn't have Old Testament, New Testament. They had a lot of the law, and that was in the Old Testament. And so that's what they were studying. And so this guy, Apollos, knew a lot of that, okay? So what happened was Apollos was a really good speaker, but he didn't know everything that happened to Jesus. See, he only knew about when John the Baptist baptized Jesus. That wasn't even one we mentioned earlier. But Apollos didn't really know the rest of the story. So when Priscilla and Aquila heard him teaching, they realized some of the things he's teaching weren't exactly quite right. So they took Apollos aside. They explained to him the entire story of Jesus and everything that happened after Jesus was baptized. Okay, so they realized he was saying some things wrong, but instead of stopping him in front of everybody and making him feel silly, they took him on the side later and they talked to him and they shared with him the real rest of the story, okay? Because they wanted, if he was going to teach, they wanted him to be teaching the right things. Now, when Apollos wanted to go to Achaia, the believers wrote a letter urging the disciples there to welcome him. You see, he was a great help to those who believed because he was able to argue with the Jews in the public because he knew all the scriptures, but he also learned a lot more about Jesus and could share that with them now. So he had the knowledge of the scriptures, and then he learned about Jesus. But you know how he learned about that? From a family worshiping and sharing about Jesus together, which was Priscilla and Aquila. Okay? So, great story today about a family taking time to help a brother, which was Apollos, out. And there's lots of things we can do to share. And there was lots of things we learned from that story. So here's some ideas on things you can do as a family to worship together and share Jesus. One thing, you could maybe pray for your neighbors that are around your block. Maybe do a little prayer walk. Simple thing to do. Another thing you could do is maybe even invite some of your neighbors to church. Another thing you can do to worship together is praying together at meal times. You probably will pray this Thanksgiving. You'll have a blessing. But maybe praying, and that's a way we worship, is talking to God at meals. Another way we could worship with our family is reading the Bible together. Maybe if you wanted to learn about Jesus during this holiday season, if you went from now until Christmas, you could read at least one of the Gospels. If you just read a chapter a day, y'all could take turns doing that, okay? Another is coming to church and worshiping and going to Bible study like you're doing right now. And another way is just telling others that things that you learn about God when they seem to fit in. You see, what happened was in that story, Priscilla and Aquila didn't push what they wanted to know on Apollos. They waited kind of till the right moment. So some of y'all, you need to be listening for those moments when God might be telling you to share who he is with others. Maybe it's your family listens to some worship music together. So there's tons of ways we can worship together and share God with others. So we've hit some of them today. So hopefully you'll think of ways you can do that. And maybe talk with your family about things they could do and people that y'all might want to share with as a family together. Okay, maybe it's moms, you want to share with the kids, and then mom and dad can share with the mom and dad. Y'all can all share together. So it could be a cool experience. Now, let's not forget, of course, we've been working on a memory verse this whole time, which is Romans 12, 10. And we're going to finish off today with that song we've been learning. But let's go over the verse one more time. It says, love one another deeply as brothers and sisters. Outdo one another in showing honor. So let's share we're going as much as we can as families to share God with others. Outdoing our family by loving them more, showing them honor more. So make sure, hopefully this family unit realize you can do a lot of things together as a family. And one's worshiping and one is sharing God with others. So let's make sure we're doing that this holiday season, because just so you know, Christmas time is when most people are a lot more open to talk about God than other times of the year. All right? Keep that in mind. Share him with others. And enjoy our last time we'll probably listen to the memory verse song. See y'all in Brick House.
Love be genuine, abhor what is evil, fast to what is good. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor, showing honor. Let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Hold fast to what is good. Yeah, love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor, showing honor. Love be genuine, yeah. Hey, here we go. Let love be genuine, be genuine. Abhor evil. Hold fast to what is good. Hold fast to what is good.